Somewhere deep inside the Amazon jungle, there is a house that should not exist anymore, hidden for over 100 years. It appears only to those who dare to enter the forbidden forest. Many explorers have searched for it, but few ever returned with clear memories of what they saw inside. When the friends decided to explore this abandoned house, they expected an adventure, not a fight for survival. Because once the sun begins to set in that jungle, the house doesn't let anyone leave. Hello, everyone. Before we start, join our YouTube family by subscribing to the channel. Don't forget to like this video and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, let's get into the story. Deep inside the Amazon rainforest, far beyond the reach of modern cities, noisy highways, and human comfort, there existed a jungle that people feared even speaking about. Locals believed the forest was alive in ways science could not explain. They said the jungle remembered everything, every footstep, every secret, every sin carried by those who entered it. Hunters avoided certain paths, tribes refused to cross particular rivers, and elders warned younger generations that some places were never meant for humans. Among all the stories told around village fires, one legend stood above the rest. 100-year-old house hidden somewhere deep within the jungle. A place where people entered but rarely returned the same. Daniel was the one who discovered the story first. He was an adventure filmmaker who traveled with his 3 closest friends, Marcus, Leo, and Ryan. Their small online channel focused on exploring abandoned and mysterious places around the world. They had explored empty factories, forgotten towns, and ancient ruins, but nothing prepared them for what they were about to face in the Amazon. The legend appeared on an old discussion forum written by a retired explorer decades earlier. The man claimed he had stumbled upon a wooden house deep in the Amazon during an expedition in the 1970s. According to his story, the house looked nearly untouched by time despite already being old back then. He described hearing footsteps inside even though no one lived there. His final warning was simple: the jungle does not let the house die. Most readers dismissed the post as fiction, but Daniel felt drawn to it. After weeks of research, satellite scans, and interviews with locals, the group decided to travel to Brazil and search for the mysterious location themselves. Their journey began normally enough. A small propeller plane carried them over endless green landscapes stretching beyond the horizon. From above, the jungle looked peaceful, almost beautiful, like a living ocean made of trees. But their pilot warned them quietly before landing near a remote river. Respect the forest. It listens. From there, they traveled by boat through muddy waters surrounded by towering trees. Strange bird calls echoed through the air, and unseen animals moved through thick vegetation. The deeper they went, the more isolated they felt. Eventually, they hired a local guide named Tomas who agreed to lead them close to the rumored area. Tomas was quiet during most of the journey. When Daniel finally asked about the house, the guide hesitated before answering. He explained that older villagers believed the house belonged to a man who came from another country nearly a century ago. The man wanted to live away from civilization and claimed the jungle spoke to him. At first, he lived peacefully with his family, But later strange things began happening. Lights were seen at night, animals avoided the area, and eventually the entire family disappeared without explanation. Tomas refused to go any farther once they reached a narrow trail swallowed by thick vines. "I wait here," he said firmly. "You go alone. Before sunset, you come back." The four friends laughed nervously, but continued onward, carrying cameras, backpacks, and supplies. At first, the jungle felt alive with sound. Insects buzzing, birds singing, leaves rustling in the wind. But after an hour of walking, those sounds began fading one by one. The silence that replaced them felt unnatural, heavy, almost intentional. Marcus noticed their compass spinning slowly without stopping. Leo joked about magnetic interference, but even he sounded unsure. The air grew humid and difficult to breathe, and shadows stretched strangely across the ground despite the sun being high above. Then Ryan stopped walking. Ahead of them, barely visible through layers of vines and massive tree roots, stood a structure that did not belong in the wilderness. The house emerged slowly as they pushed aside branches. It was larger than they expected, a two-story wooden building darkened by age and moisture. Moss covered the walls, vines wrapped around the porch pillars, and broken windows stared outward like empty eyes watching their arrival. Parts of the roof had collapsed, yet the structure still stood strong, as if protected by something unseen. Daniel immediately lifted his camera, excitement replacing fear. "This is it," he whispered. "This is real." But something felt wrong. There were no animal sounds nearby. No insects buzzed. Even the wind seemed to avoid the area surrounding the house. The jungle that had felt alive moments earlier now felt frozen. Leo walked around the front yard and noticed deep roots growing over the ground like veins. It looked as though the forest itself was slowly swallowing the building. Marcus pointed out something even stranger. There were no footprints, no nests, no signs of wildlife anywhere near the house. Ryan felt chills crawl down his spine. It's like nature is avoiding it. As they approached the porch, the wooden boards creaked softly before anyone stepped on them, reacting as if aware of their presence. A cold breeze moved through the trees despite the humid air. Leaves rustled in a circular motion around them, creating a faint whispering sound. Daniel placed his hand on the front door. The wood felt colder than expected, almost icy. He pushed gently. The door opened by itself with a long, echoing creak. Darkness waited inside. Sunlight barely entered through cracked windows, illuminating floating dust particles suspended in the air. The interior looked frozen in time. A dining table stood prepared for a meal that had never been finished. Chairs were slightly pulled back. Plates rested exactly where someone had left them, and faded curtains moved slowly despite no visible wind. The four friends exchanged silent glances. Excitement mixed with unease. Daniel stepped inside first, camera recording every detail. The floor groaned beneath his weight, echoing through the empty rooms. One by one, the others followed. Behind them, without anyone noticing, the front door slowly began to close. The sound was soft, almost welcoming, and somewhere upstairs, a faint footstep echoed, slow, deliberate, and unmistakably human. The sound of the door closing behind them, echoed softly through the house. But none of the four friends noticed it at first. Their attention was captured by the strange stillness inside. The air felt heavier than outside, colder despite the humid jungle surrounding the building. Dust floated slowly through beams of weak sunlight leaking from broken windows, and every movement they made seemed louder than it should have been. Daniel adjusted his camera and whispered excitedly, trying to keep his professional tone. "This place looks untouched, like time stopped here." His voice echoed unnaturally across the walls, fading slower than normal sound should. The living room appeared frozen in a forgotten moment. Old wooden furniture stood exactly in place, covered with thin layers of dust but not completely destroyed. A rocking chair moved slightly, creaking back and forth even though no wind entered the room. Leo laughed nervously, assuming it was caused by their footsteps shaking the floor. But the chair continued moving long after they stopped walking. Ryan moved toward a wall filled with photographs. The frames were faded but intact. He wiped dust from one image and revealed a smiling family, a man, a woman, and two young children standing proudly in front of the same house decades earlier. The jungle behind them looked thinner, younger, almost welcoming compared to the dense forest outside now. "What happened to them?" Ryan murmured. Marcus pointed toward another photo where the same family stood inside the house. Something about it felt wrong. Behind the family, near the staircase, a dark shape appeared, tall and shadow-like. At first, it looked like damage to the photograph, but the outline resembled a person standing silently in the background. No one spoke about it. They moved deeper into the house. The dining area remained perfectly arranged, as if dinner had been interrupted. Plates held dried remains of food that somehow had not completely decayed. Rusted utensils lay beside them, untouched for decades. The scene felt unsettling, like stepping into someone else's memory. Upstairs, a faint sound echoed again. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, intentional. Marcus looked toward the staircase. "Did you guys hear that?" The others froze. Silence followed, thick and uncomfortable. Daniel smiled awkwardly. Probably animals on the roof. But Marcus wasn't convinced. He slowly climbed the stairs, each step producing a loud creak that echoed through the house. The hallway upstairs stretched into darkness. Doors lined both sides, slightly open as if waiting. Halfway down the hall stood a large mirror covered in dust. Marcus approached, carefully, shining his flashlight across it. His reflection appeared pale and distorted by age-stained glass. For a brief moment, he noticed movement behind him in the reflection. A shadow passing across the hallway. He turned instantly. "Nothing. Guys," he called out. No response. Downstairs, Ryan opened an old cabinet and discovered a leather-bound journal hidden beneath loose wood panels. The cover cracked as he opened it. Handwritten entries filled the pages, dated nearly 100 years earlier. The first entries described hope and excitement. The writer spoke about moving into the jungle to escape civilization and start a peaceful life. He believed nature would purify the human soul. But as Ryan turned pages, the tone changed dramatically. The writer began describing whispers heard at night, footsteps outside bedrooms, and shadows appearing even in complete darkness. One entry read, "The jungle watches us. It learns our voices." Another said, "My children speak to someone who is not there." Ryan felt uneasy but continued reading. The handwriting grew shakier with each entry. Words overlapped as if written in fear. "We tried to leave. The paths change. The forest brings us back." The final completed sentence stopped abruptly. "The house is no longer ours." At that exact moment, a loud bang shook the entire house. Ryan dropped the journal. Daniel and Leo rushed upstairs toward Marcus, who stood frozen near the mirror. His breathing was fast, eyes wide with fear. "I saw someone," Marcus whispered. "Right behind me." Daniel pointed his camera down the hallway, expecting to capture proof, but the corridor remained empty. Suddenly, one of the doors slammed shut violently on its own. Then another followed. Echoes filled the house like thunder trapped indoors. The temperature dropped sharply. Their breaths became visible in the air. Flashlights flickered. From above them came running footsteps. Fast, heavy steps crossing the ceiling even though there was no higher floor. The sound moved from one side of the house to the other, stopping directly above them. Leo whispered, "We need to leave. Now." They rushed downstairs toward the entrance. Daniel grabbed the door handle and pulled. It didn't move. He pulled harder. Still nothing. Marcus tried next, using both hands, but the door remained completely locked. Panic began spreading among them. Outside, through broken windows, daylight looked wrong. The jungle appeared darker, shadows stretching unnaturally across. The ground as if evening had arrived too quickly. Behind them, the rocking chair began moving again, this time faster. A faint whisper filled the room, low voices overlapping, impossible to understand yet clearly speaking. Ryan slowly picked up the journal again, realizing something terrifying. The house had not been abandoned. It had been waiting, and now it knew they were inside. Fear tightened around the four friends as the whispers inside the house grew louder. The sound did not come from one direction. It surrounded them completely, echoing through walls, floors, and ceilings as if the entire building had become alive. Daniel kept pulling at the door handle again and again, but it refused to open. Sweat ran down his face despite the freezing air inside. "We're not staying here," Leo said, his voice shaking. He grabbed a wooden chair and slammed it against one of the windows. The glass cracked slightly but did not shatter. It felt unnaturally strong, almost resistant to escape. Behind them, the rocking chair suddenly stopped moving. Silence followed. Then a slow creaking sound came from the staircase. All four turned at the same time. A shadow stretched across the wall, long and thin, moving downward step by step even though no physical figure could be seen. Each creak matched the sound of invisible footsteps descending toward them. Marcus stepped back, nearly dropping his flashlight. "This isn't real. This can't be real," he whispered. Ryan quickly opened the journal again, desperate to find something they had missed. His hands trembled as he flipped through the fragile pages. Near the back, he discovered several pages stuck together. Carefully separating them revealed a hidden entry written in rushed handwriting. "The jungle spirit lives through the house. It feeds on those who enter after sunset. The door will not open once night begins. Escape must happen before darkness fully takes the sky." Ryan looked toward the windows. Outside, the jungle had turned almost completely dark. Even though only hours earlier, it had been bright afternoon. "We're running out of time," he said. The whispers suddenly became clear voices calling their names. Daniel, Marcus, Ryan. The voices sounded familiar, like friends, family members, even their own voices repeating back at them. Leo covered his ears, trying to block the sound, but it seemed to come from inside his head. Footsteps rushed across the ceiling again, faster now, circling above them. Furniture began shaking slightly. Dust fell from the roof. The temperature dropped even further until their breath formed clouds in front of their faces. Daniel forced himself to stay calm. "Together," he said firmly. "We push the door together." They lined up and pushed with all their strength. The wood groaned but didn't move. Behind them, something scraped across the floor, a dragging sound slowly approaching. Marcus turned his flashlight toward the hallway. For a split second, he saw a tall, dark figure standing near the staircase. It had no clear face, only shifting shadows shaped like a human form. The light flickered, and the figure vanished instantly. Marcus screamed now. All for pushed again with everything they had. The door cracked open slightly, allowing a thin beam of sunlight to enter. The moment the light touched the floor, the whispers grew, louder, almost angry. The house shook violently as if resisting their escape. "Again!" Daniel shouted. They pushed harder. The door suddenly burst open, and bright daylight flooded inside. Warm air replaced the freezing cold instantly. Without looking back, the friends ran outside onto the overgrown porch and down into the jungle. The moment they crossed away from the house, the sounds stopped. No whispers, no footsteps, only the natural sounds of the jungle slowly returning. Birds calling, insects buzzing, leaves moving in the wind. They ran for nearly an hour before stopping to catch their breath. Exhausted and shaken, Daniel turned his camera back toward the direction of the house, wanting one final shot as proof of what they had experienced. But when the camera focused through the trees, there was nothing there. No house, no clearing, only endless jungle. Confused, they walked back a few steps, trying to find the path again. The location where the house had stood was completely gone, replaced by thick vegetation that looked untouched for decades. Ryan checked the footage recorded earlier. The house appeared clearly on camera. Every room, every detail, every terrifying moment. Yet standing there now, no physical evidence remained. As they finally reunited with Thomas near the river, the guide looked relieved to see them alive. He asked only one question. "Did you go inside?" None of them answered. During the journey back, no one joked or spoke about adventure anymore. The experience had changed them. Marcus avoided mirrors for weeks afterward. Leo stopped exploring abandoned places entirely. Ryan kept the journal locked away, refusing to read it again. Daniel uploaded the footage months later. The video went viral worldwide. Millions watched the exploration, debating whether it was real or staged. Some viewers noticed strange shadows moving in frames where no one stood. Others claimed to hear faint whispers when using headphones. But the most terrifying part came at the end of the video. In the final shot, just before the camera cut off, A figure appeared briefly in an upstairs window of the house, watching them leave. A figure that had not been there when they filmed. And deep inside the Amazon jungle, somewhere beyond maps and memory, the 100-year-old house continued waiting silently for the next visitors brave enough to enter.